Hello, hello everyone. Sorry for being late, super late. But I'm here now. Uh we're going to continue on with Starship Troopers. We just saw in the previous chapter how Johnny Boy is now going to be going career with the what are they called? The Tarian the Tarian Federation, something like that. I don't know. Super Earth. He's gonna be going career with Super Earth, okay, guys? But let's see. Everything seems to be going. I think everything is fine. All the things seem to be doing their things. All the beeps are beeping. Okay. So we're on chapter 12. The only reason I'm reading one chapter tonight is because this chapter is actually pretty long. It's gonna take me the entire stream to read it. So that's why I'm not skimping out because I'm late. Okay, that's not why. It's just it's a long chapter. Okay, okay. So we're on chapter 12, opening up with a little quote. It is by no means enough that an officer should be capable. He should be as well a gentleman of liberal education, refined manners, punctilious courtesy, and the nicest sense of personal honor. No meritorious act of a subordinate should escape his attention, even if the reward by only one word of approval. Conversely, he should not be blind to a single fault in any subordinate, true as may be the political principles for which we are now contending. The ships themselves must be ruled under a system of absolute despotism. I trust that I have now made clear to you the tremendous responsibilities. We must do the best we can with what we have. John Paul Jones, September 14th, 1775. Excerpts from a letter to the Naval Committee of the N.A. Insurrectionists. So, apologies if my nose sounds a little stuffy. I don't know what happened. Uh, I just have a stuffy nose, apparently, and I might sneeze here or there. Must be allergies. I can't tell you. But we're gonna continue on with chapter 12. The Roger Young was again returning to base for replacements, both capsules and men. Al Jenkins had bought his farm covering a pickup, and that one had cost us the Padre too. And besides that, I had to be replaced. I was wearing brand new sergeant's chevrons, vice migliaccio, but I had a hunch that Ace would be wearing them as soon as I was out of the ship. They were mostly honorary, I knew. The promotion was Jelly's way of giving me a good send-off as I was detached for OCS. But it didn't keep me from being proud of them. At the fleet landing field, I went through the exit gate with my nose in the air and strode up to the quarantine desk to have my order stamped. As this was being done, I heard a polite, respectful voice behind me. "Excuse me, Sergeant, but that boat that just came down, is it from the Roger?" I turned to see the speaker, flicked my eyes over his sleeves, saw that it was a small, slightly stooped-shouldered corporal, no doubt one of our father? Then the corporal had his arms around me. "Juan, Juan, oh, my little boy, Johnny." I kissed him and hugged him and started to cry. Maybe that civilian clerk at the quarantine desk had never seen two non-coms kiss each other before, but, well, if I had noticed him so much as lifting an eyebrow, I would have pasted him. But I didn't notice him. I was busy. He had to remind me to take my orders with me. By then, we had blown our noses and quit making an open spectacle of ourselves. I said, "Father, let's find a corner somewhere and sit down and talk. I want to know, well, everything." I took a deep breath. I thought you were dead." "No. Came close to buying it once or twice maybe, but son, uh, Sergeant, I really do have to find out about that landing boat, you see." "Oh, that's from the Roger Young. I just—" He looked terribly disappointed. "Then I've got to bounce right now. I've got to report in." Then he added eagerly, "But you'll be back aboard soon, won't you, Juanito? Or are you going on R&R?" Uh, no. I thought fast. Of all the ways to have things roll. "Look, Father, I know the boat's schedule. You can't go aboard for at least an hour and a bit. That boat is not on a fast retrieval. She'll make a minimum fuel rendezvous when the Raj completes this pass. If the pilot doesn't have to wait over for the next pass after that, they've got to load first." He said dubiously, "My orders read to report at once to the pilot of the first available ship's boat." Father, do you have to be so confounded regulation? The girl who's pushing that heap won't care whether you board the boat now or just as they button up. Anyhow, they'll pass the ship's recall over the speakers in here 10 minutes before boost and announce it. You can't miss it." He let me lead him over to an empty corner. As we sat down, he added, "Will you be going up in the same boat, Juan, or later?" Uh, I showed him my orders. It seemed the simplest way to break the news. Ships that pass in the night, like the Evangeline story. Cripes. What a way for things to break. He read them and got tears in his eyes, and I said hastily, "Look, Father, I'm going to try to come back. I wouldn't want any other outfit than the Roughnecks. And with you in them, oh, I know it's disappointing, but—" "It's not disappointment, Juan." "Huh?" "It's my pride. My boy is going to be an officer. My little Johnny. Oh, it's disappointment, too. I had waited for this day, but I can wait a little longer." He smiled through his tears. "You've grown up, lad. And filled out, too." "Oh, well, I guess so, but Father, I'm not an officer yet, and I might only be out of the Raj a few days. I mean, they sometimes bust 'em out pretty fast, and—" "Enough of that, young man." "What?" "You'll make it. Let's have no more talk of busting out." Suddenly he smiled. "That's the first time I've been able to tell a sergeant to shut up." "Well, I'll certainly try, Father, but if I do make it, I'll certainly put in for the old Raj, but—" I trailed off. "Yes, I know. Your request won't mean anything unless there's a billet for you. Never mind. If this hour is all we have, we'll make the most of it. And I'm so proud of you. I'm splitting my seams. How have you been, Johnny?" "Oh, well, fine. Just fine." I was thinking that it wasn't all bad. He would be better off in the Roughnecks than in any other outfit. All my friends, they'd take care of him, keep him alive. I'd have to send a gram to Ace. Father, as Father, as not, wouldn't even let them know he was related. "Father, how long have you been in?" "A little over a year." "And corporal already?" Father smiled grimly. "They're making them fast these days." Dang, so his father enlisted to become a citizen. Whoa, what the heck? It's crazy. And he's been in for a year, and Johnny's just now finding out. That's crazy. Jeez, I can't even imagine. I didn't have to ask what he meant. Casualties. There were always vacancies in the TO. You couldn't get enough trained soldiers to fill them. Instead, I said, but father, you're, well, I mean, aren't you sort of old to be soldiering? I mean, the Navy or logistics or I wanted the MI, and I got it, he said emphatically. And I'm no older than many sergeants. Not as old, in fact. Son, the mere fact that I am 22 years older than you. I thought he was going to say he's 22 years old. Oh my god. I'm like, wait, that doesn't match up. Son, the mere fact that I am 22 years older than you are doesn't put me in a wheelchair. And age has its advantages, too. Well, there was something in that. I recalled how Sergeant Zim had always tried the older men first when he was dealing out boot chevrons. And father would never have goofed in basic the way I had. No less for him. He was probably spotted as non-com material before he ever finished basic. The army needs a lot of really grown-up men in the middle grades. It's a paternalistic organization. I didn't have to ask him why he wanted MI, nor why or how he had wound up in my ship. I just felt warm about it, more flattered by it than any praise he had ever given me in words, and I didn't want to ask him why he had joined up. I felt that I knew. Mother, neither of us had mentioned her. Too painful. So I changed the subject abruptly. Bring me up to date. Tell me, where have you been and what you've done? Well, I trained at Camp San Martin. Huh? Not Curry? New one, but the same old lumps. I understand. Only they rush you through 2 months faster. You don't get Sundays off. Then I requested the Roger Young and didn't get it, and wound up in Mixed Lotteries Volunteers. A good outfit. Yes, I know. They had had a reputation of being rough, tough, and nasty. Almost as good as the Roughnecks. I, oh yeah. Let's see, this is then father talking. I should say that it was a good outfit. I made several drops with them, and some of the boys bought it, and after a while, I got these. He glanced at his chevrons. I was a corporal when we dropped on Shell. You were there? So was I! With a sudden warm flood of emotion, I felt closer to my father than I ever had before in my life. I know. At least, I knew your outfit was there. I was about 50 miles north of you, near as I can guess. We soaked up that counterattack when they came boiling up out of the ground like bats out of a cave. Father shrugged. So, when it was over, I was a corporal without an outfit. Not enough of us left to make a healthy cadre, so they sent me here. I could have gone with King's Kodiak Bears, but I had a word with the placement sergeant, and sure as sunshine, the Roger Young came back with a billet for a corporal. So, here I am. And when did you join up? I realized that it was the wrong remark as soon as I made it, but I had to get the subject away from Mixed Lotteries Volunteers. An orphan from a dead outfit wants to forget it. Father said quietly, shortly after Buenos Aires. Oh, I see. Father didn't say anything for several moments. Then he said softly, I'm not sure that you do see, son. Sir? Mm, it will not be easy to explain. Certainly, losing your mother had a great deal to do with it, but I didn't enroll to avenge her, even though I had that in mind too. You had more to do with it. Me? Yes, you, son. I always understood what you were doing better than your mother did. Don't blame her. She never had a chance to know, any more than a bird can understand swimming. And perhaps I knew why you did it, even though I beg to doubt that you knew yourself at the time. At least half of my anger at you was sheer resentment that you had actually done something that I knew buried deep in my heart I should have done, but you weren't the cause of my joining up either. You merely helped trigger it, and you did control the service I chose. He paused. I wasn't in good shape at the time you enrolled. I was seeing my hypnotherapist pretty regularly. You never suspected that, did you? But we had gotten no further than a clear recognition that I was enormously dis- dissatisfied. Enormously dissatisfied. After you left, I took it out on you, but it was not you, and I knew it, and my therapist knew it. I suppose I knew that there was real trouble brewing earlier than most. We were invited to bid on military components fully a month before the state of emergency was announced. We had converted almost entirely to war production while you were still in training. I felt better during that period, worked to death, and too busy to see my therapist. Then I became more troubled than ever. He smiled. Son, do you know about civilians? Well, yeah, we don't talk the same language. I know that. Clearly enough put. Do you remember Madame Rietman? I was on a few days leave after I finished basic. Oh, this is the father still, sorry. I was on a few days leave after I finished basic and I went home. I saw some of our friends, said goodbye, she among them. She chattered away and said, "So you're really going out? Well, if you reach Fairway, you really must look up my dear friends, the Ragatos." I told her as gently as I could that it seemed unlikely, since the Arachnids had occupied Fairway. It didn't faze her in the least. She said, "Oh, that's all right. They're civilians." Father smiled cynically. "Yes, I know, but I'm getting ahead of my story. I told you that I was getting still more upset. Your mother's death released me for what I had to do. Even though she and I were closer than most, nevertheless, it set me free to do it. I turned the business over to Morales." "Old man Morales? Can he handle it?" "Yes, because he has to. A lot of us are doing things we didn't know we could. I gave him a nice chunk of stock. You know, the old saying about the kind that tread the grain, and the rest I split two ways. In a trust, half to the Daughters of Charity, half to you, whenever you want to go back and take it, if you do. No, never mind. I had at least found out what was wrong with me." He stopped, then said very softly, "I had to perform an act of faith. I had to prove to myself that I was a man, not just a producing, consuming, economic animal, but a man." At that moment, before I could answer anything, the wall speakers around us sang, shines the name of Roger Young," and a girl's voice added, "Personnel for F.C.T. Roger Young, stand to boat. Berth H9 minutes." Father bounced to his feet, grabbed his kit roll. "That's mine. Take care of yourself, son, and hit those exams, or you'll find you're still not too big to paddle." "I will, father." He embraced me hastily. "See you when we get back." And he was gone, on the bounce. Jeez. That's crazy. So I guess we're gonna learn what exactly it means for civilians. They don't give two shits about them, I guess. That's what it sounds like. Let's see. In the commandant's outer office, I reported to a fleet sergeant who looked remarkably like Sergeant Ho, even even too lacking an arm. Oh my god. However, he lacked Sergeant Ho's smile as well. I said, Career Sergeant Juan Rico, to report to the commandant pursuant to orders. He glanced at the clock. Your boat was down 73 minutes ago. Well, so I told him. He pulled his lip and looked at me meditatively. I've heard every excuse in the book, but you've just added a new page. Your father, your own father, really was reporting to your old ship just as you were detached? The bare truth, Sergeant. You can check it. Corporal Emilio Rico. We don't check the statements of the young gentlemen around here. We simply cashier them if it really turns out that they have not told the truth. Okay. A boy who wouldn't be late in order to see his old man off wouldn't be worth much in any case. Forget it. Thanks, Sergeant. Do I report to the commandant now? You've reported to him. He made a check mark on a list. Maybe a month from now he'll send you along with a couple of dozen others. Here's your room assignment. Here's a check-off list you start with, and you can start by cutting off those chevrons. But save them. You may need them later. But as of this moment, you are Mr., not Sergeant. Oh, Mr. Rico. Yes, sir. Don't call me sir. I call you sir. But you won't like it. Okay. I'm not going to describe Officer Candidate School. It's like basic, but squared and cubed with books added. In the mornings, we behaved like privates, doing the same old things we had done in basic and in combat, and being chewed out for the way we did them by sergeants. In the afternoons, we were cadets and gentlemen, and recited on and were lectured concerning an endless list of subjects: math, science, galacto- galactography, xenology, hypnopedia, logistics, strategy and tactics, communications, military law, terrain reading, special weapons, psychology of leadership, anything from the care and feeding of privates to why Xerxes lost the big one. Most especially, how to be a one-man catastrophe yourself while keeping track of 50 other men, nursing them, loving them, leading them, saving them, but never babying them. We had beds, which we used all too little. We had rooms and showers and inside plumbing, and each four candidates had a civilian servant to make our beds, and clean our rooms, and shine our shoes, and lay out our uniforms, and run errands. This service was not intended as a luxury, and was not. Its purpose was to give the student more time to accomplish the plainly impossible by relieving him of things any graduate of basic can already do perfectly. Jeez, what the heck. 6 days shalt thou work, and do all thou art able. The seventh the same, and pound on the cable. Or the army version ends, and clean out the stable. Which shows you how many centuries this sort of thing has been going on. I wish I could catch just one of those civilians who think we loaf and put them through 1 month of OCS. Jeez. He's already starting to hate those civilians, huh? Those civilian scum. In the evenings and all day Sundays, we'd studied until our eyes burned and our ears ached, then slept, if we slept. with a Hypnopedia speaker droning away under the pillow. Our marching songs were appropriately downbeat. Downbeat. Oh, excuse me. No army for mine. No army for mine. Oh, I guess this is a song. No army for mine, no army for mine. I'd rather be behind the plow any old time. And don't want to study war no more. And don't make my boy a soldier, the weeping mother cried. Jeez. And forever, and and favorite of all, the old classic, Gentlemen Rankers, with its chorus about the little lost sheep. God have pity on such as we, bye ya bye. Yet, somehow, I don't remember being unhappy. Too busy, I guess. There was never that psychological hump to get over, the one everybody hits in basic. There was simply the ever present fear of flunking out. My poor preparation in math bothered me especially. My roommate, a colonial from Hesperus, with the oddly appropriate name of Angel, sat up night after night tutoring me. Most of the instructors, especially the officers, were disabled. The only ones I can remember who had a full complement, jeez, a full complement of arms, legs, eyesight, hearing, etc., were some of the non-commissioned combat instructors, and not all of those. Our coach in dirty fighting sat in a powered chair, wearing a plastic collar, and was completely paralyzed from the neck down. But his tongue wasn't paralyzed. His eye was photographic, and the savage way in which he could analyze and criticize what he had seen made up for his minor impediment. Jeez. At first, I wondered why those obvious candidates for physical retirement and full pay pension didn't take it and go home. Then I quit wondering. I guess the high point in my whole cadet course was a visit from an Ensign Ibanez? She of the dark eyes, junior watch officer, and pilot under instruction of the corvette transport Mannerheim. Carmencita showed up, looking incredibly pert in navy dress whites and about the size of a paperweight, while my class was lined up for our evening meal muster, walking down the line, and you could hear eyeballs click as she passed. Eyeballs click. Walked straight up to the duty officer and asked for me by name in a clear, penetrating voice. The duty officer, Captain Chander, was widely believed never to have smiled at his own mother, but he smiled down at little Carmen, straining his face out of shape, and admitted my existence, whereupon she waved her long black lashes at him, explained that her ship was about to boost, and could she please take me out to dinner? And I found myself in possession of a highly irregular and totally unprecedented 3-hour pass. It may be that the Navy has developed hypnosis tech. It may be that the Navy has developed hypnosis techniques that they have not yet gotten around to passing on to the Army, or her secret weapon may be older than that and not usable by MI. In any case, I not only had a wonderful time, but my prestige with my classmates, not too high until then, climbed to amazing heights. Oh my god. She literally just asked for this guy to get time off, and the dude's like, yeah, sure, why not? Look, it's a mythical female here in front of me. It was a glorious evening, and well worth flunking 2 classes the next day. It was somewhat dimmed by the fact that we had each heard about Carl killed when the bugs smashed our research station in Pluto, but only somewhat, as we had each learned to live with such things. Carl, was that like his best friend, right? That he enlisted earlier in the book? And that was the reason why Johnny enlisted? Pretty sure that was like, yeah, it was like the three of them that hung out. Carmen, Johnny, and then Carl. Pretty sure. Man, that's so sad. Alright. One thing did startle me. Carmen relaxed and took off her hat while we were eating, and her blue-black hair was all gone. I knew that a lot of Navy girls shaved their heads. After all, it's not practical to take care of long hair in a warship, and most especially, a pilot can't risk having her hair floating around, getting in the way. In any free fall maneuvers, I suppose. Shucks, I shaved my own scalp, just for convenience and cleanliness, but my mental picture of little Carmen included this mane of thick, wavy hair. But, do you know, once you get used to it, it's rather cute. I mean, if a girl looks alright to start with, she still looks alright with her head smooth. And it does serve to set a Navy girl apart from civilian chicks. Sort of a lodge pin. Like the gold skulls for combat drops. It made Carmen look distinguished. Gave her dignity. And for the first time I fully realized that she really was an officer and a fighting man. As well as a very, very pretty girl. I got back to barracks with stars in my eyes, and whiffing slightly of perfume. Carmen had kissed me goodbye. Oh, that's sweet. They like went on like a little date and everything. That's cute. The only OCS classroom course, the content of which I'm even going to mention, was history and moral philosophy. I was surprised to find it in the curriculum. H and MP has nothing to do with combat and how to lead a platoon. Its connection with war, where it is connected, is in why to fight, a matter already settled for any candidate long before he reaches OCS. An MI fights because he is an MI. I decided that the course must be a repeat for the benefit of those of us, maybe a third, who had never had it in school. Over 20% of my cadet class was not from Terra. A much higher percentage of uh, colonials sign up to serve than do people born on Earth. Sometimes it makes you wonder. And of the 3/4 or so from Terra, some were from associated territories and other places where H and MP might not be taught, so I figured it for a cinch course, which would give me a little rest from tough courses, the ones with decimal points. Wrong again. Unlike my high school course, you had to pass it. Not by examination, however. The course included examinations and prepared papers and quizzes and such, but no marks. What you had to have was the instructor's opinion that you were worthy of commission. If he gave you a down check, a board sat on you, questioning not merely whether you could be an officer, but whether you belonged in the army at any rank. No matter how fast you might be with weapons, deciding whether to give you extra instruction or just kick you out and let you be a civilian. History and moral philosophy works like a delayed action bomb. You wake up in the middle of the night and think, now what did he mean by that? That had been true even with my high school course. I simply hadn't known what Colonel Du Bois was talking about. When I was a kid, I thought it was silly for the course to be in the science department. It was nothing like physics or chemistry. Why wasn't it over in the fuzzy studies where it belonged? The only reason I paid attention was because There were such lovely arguments. I had no idea that Mr. Du Bois was trying to teach me why to fight until long after I had decided to fight anyhow. Well, why should I fight? Wasn't it preposterous to expose my tender skin to the violence of unfriendly strangers? Especially as the pay at any rank was barely spending money, the hours terrible, and the working conditions worse. When I could be sitting at home while such matters were handled by thick-skulled characters who enjoyed such games, particularly when the strangers against whom I fought never had done anything to me personally until I showed up and started kicking over their tea wagon. What sort of nonsense is this? Fight because I'm an MI. Brother, you're drooling like Dr. Pavlov's dogs. Cut it out and start thinking. Oh man, he's thinking. Major Reed, our instructor, was a blind man with a discerning habit of looking straight at you and calling you by name. We were reviewing events after the war between the Russo-Anglo-American Alliance and the Chinese heg- hegemony, 1987 and following. But this was the day that we heard the news of the destruction of San Francisco and the San Joaquin Valley. I thought he would give us a pep talk. After all, even a civilian ought to be able to figure it out now. The bugs or us? Fight or die? Major Reed didn't mention San Francisco. He had one of us apes summarize the negotiated Treaty of New Delhi, discuss how it ignored prisoners of war, and by implications dropped the subject forever. The armistice became a stalemate, and prisoners stayed where they were, on one side. On the other side, they were turned loose and, during the disorders, made their way home. Or not, if they didn't want to. Major Reed's victims summed up the unreleased prisoners, survivors of two divisions of British paratroopers, some thousands of civilians, captured mostly in Japan, the Philippines, and Russia, and sentenced for political crimes. Let's see. Besides that, there were many other military prisoners, Major Reed's victim went on, captured during and before the war. There were rumors that some had been captured in an earlier war and never released. The total of unreleased prisoners was never known. The best estimates placed the number around 65,000. Why the best? Oh, that's the estimate in the textbook, sir. Please be precise in your language. Was the number greater or less than 100,000? I don't know, sir. And nobody else knows. Was it greater than 1,000? Probably, sir. Almost certainly. Utterly certain. Because more than that eventually escaped, found their ways home, were tallied by name. I see you did not read your lesson carefully, Mr. Rico. Now, I am the victim. Yes, sir? Are 1,000 unreleased prisoners sufficient reason to start or resume a war? Bear in mind that millions of innocent people may die, almost certainly will die if war is started or resumed. I didn't hesitate. Yes, sir. More than enough reason. More than enough. Very well. Is one prisoner unreleased by the enemy enough reason to start or resume a war? I hesitated. I knew the MI answer, but I didn't think that was the one he wanted. He said sharply, come, mister. We have an upper limit of 1,000. I invited you to consider a lower limit of 1, but you can't pay a promissory note which reads somewhere between 1 and 1,000 pounds, and starting a war is much more serious than paying a trifle of money. Wouldn't it be criminal to endanger a country, two countries in fact, to save one man, especially as he may not deserve it, or may die in the meantime? Thousands of people get killed every day in accidents, so why hesitate over one man? Answer. Answer yes or answer no. You're holding up the class. He got my goat. I gave him the cap trooper's answer. Yes, sir. Yes, what? It doesn't matter whether it's 1,000 or just one, sir. You fight. Aha! The number of prisoners is irrelevant. Good. Now prove your answer. I was stuck. I knew it was the right answer, but I didn't know why. He kept hounding me. Speak up, Mr. Rico. This is an exact science. You have made a mathematical statement. You must give proof. Someone may claim that you have asserted by analogy that one potato is worth the same price, no more, no less, as 1,000 potatoes. No? No, sir. Why not? Prove it. Men are not potatoes. Good, good, Mr. Rico. I think we have strained your tired brain enough for one day. Bring to class tomorrow a written proof in symbolic logic of your answer to my original question. I'll give you a hint. See reference 7 in today's chapter. Mr. Solomon, how did the present political organization evolve out of the disorders? And what is its moral justification? Sally stumbled through the first part. However, nobody can describe accurately how the Federation came about. It just grew. With the national governments in collapse at the end of the 20th century, something had to fill the vacuum, and in many cases it was returned veterans. They had lost the war. Most of them had no jobs. Many were sore as could be over the terms of the Treaty of New Delhi, especially the POW foul-up. And they knew how to fight, but it wasn't revolution. It was more like what happened in Russia in 1917. The system collapsed. Somebody else moved in. The first known case, in Aberdeen, Scotland, was typical. Some veterans got together as vigilantes to stop rioting and looting, hanged a few people, including 2 veterans, and decided not to let anyone but veterans on their committee. Just arbitrary at first. They trusted each other a bit. They didn't trust anyone else. What started as an emergency measure became constitutional practice in a generation or 2. Probably those Scottish veterans, since they were finding it necessary to hang some veterans, decided that if they had to do this, they weren't going to let any bleeding, profiteering black market double time for overtime, army dodging, unprintable civilians have any say about it. They do what they were told, see? While us apes straighten things out. That's my guess, because I might feel the same way. And historians agree that antagonism between civilians and returned soldiers was more intense than we can imagine today. Sally didn't tell it by the book. Finally, Major Reed cut him off. Bring a summary to class tomorrow. 3,000 words, Mr. Solomon. Can you give me a reason? Not historical nor theoretical, but practical. Why the franchise is today limited to discharged veterans? Because they were picked men, sir. Smarter. Preposterous! Sir, is the word too long for you? I said it was a silly notion. Servicemen are not brighter than civilians. In many cases, civilians are much more intelligent. That was the sliver of justification underlying the attempted coup d'etat just before the Treaty of New Delhi. The so-called revolt of the scientists. Let the intelligent elite run things and you'll have utopia. It fell flat on its foolish face, of course, because the pursuit of science, despite its social benefits, it it is itself not a social virtue. Its practitioners can be men so self-centered as to be lacking in social responsibility. I've given you a hint, mister. Can you pick it up? Sally answered, Servicemen are disciplined, sir. Major Reed was gentle with him. Sorry. An appealing theory not backed up by facts. You and I are not permitted to vote as long as we remain in the service, nor is it verifiable that military discipline makes a man self-disciplined once he is out. The crime rate of veterans is much like that of civilians. You have forgotten that in peacetime most veterans come from non-combatant auxiliary services and have not been subjected to the full rigors of military discipline. They have merely been harried, overworked, and endangered. Yet their vote counts. Major Reed smiled. Mr. Sullivan, I handed you a trick question. The practical reason for continuing our system is the same as the practical reason for continuing anything. It works satisfactorily. Nevertheless, it is instructive to observe the details. Throughout history, men have labored to place the sovereign franchise in hands that would guard it well and use it wisely for the benefit of all. An early attempt was absolute monarchy, passionately defended as the divine right of kings. Sometimes attempts were made to select a wise monarch rather than leave it up to God, as when the Swedes picked a Frenchman, General Bernadotte, to rule them. The objection to this is that the supply of Bernadottes is limited. Historic examples range from absolute monarch to utter anarch. Mankind has tried thousands of ways, and many more have been proposed, some weird and extreme, such as the ant-like communism ergo by Plato, under the misleading title The Republic. But the intent has always been moralistic, to provide stable and benevolent government. All systems seek to achieve this by limiting franchise to those who are believed to have the wisdom to use it justly. I repeat, all systems, even the so-called unlimited democracies, excluded from franchise not less than 1/4 of their populations by age, birth, poll tax, criminal record, and other. Major Reed smiled cynically. I have never been able to see how a 30-year-old moron can vote more wisely than a 15-year-old genius. But that was the age of the divine right of the common man. Never mind, they paid for their folly. The sovereign franchise has been bestowed by all sorts of rules. Place of birth, family of birth, race, sex, property, education, age, religion, etc. All these systems worked, and none of them, well, all were regarded as tyrannical by many. All eventually collapsed or were overthrown. Now, here are we with still another system, and our system works quite well. Many complain, but none rebel. Personal freedom for all is greatest in history. Laws are few, taxes are low, living standards are as high as productivity permits. Crime is at its lowest ebb. Why? Not because our voters are smarter than other people. We've disposed of that argument. Mr. Tammany, can you tell us why our system works better than any used by our ancestors? I don't know where Clyde Tammany got his name. I'd take him for a Hindu. He answered, I don't really know how to do a Hindu or Indian voice. So I'll just give him something else. uh, I'd venture to guess that it's because the electors are a small group who know that the decisions are up to them, so they study the issues. No guessing, please. This is exact science, and your guess is wrong. The ruling nobles of many other systems were a small group fully aware of their grave power. Furthermore, our franchise citizens are not everywhere a small fraction. You know, or should know, that the percentage of citizens among adults, oh, excuse me, ranges from over 80% on Iskander to less than 3% in some Terran nations. Yet, government is much the same everywhere, nor are the voters picked men. They bring no special wisdom, talent, or training to their sovereign tasks. So, what difference is there between our voters and welders of franchise in the past? We have had enough guesses. I'll state the obvious. Under our system, every voter and office holder is a man who has demonstrated through voluntary and difficult service that he places the welfare of the group ahead of personal advantage. And that is the one practical difference. He may fail in wisdom, he may lapse in civic virtue, but his average performance is enormously better than that of any other class of rulers in history. Major Reed paused to touch the face of an old-fashioned watch, reading its hands. The period is almost over, and we have yet to determine the moral reason for our success in governing ourselves. Now, continued success is never a matter of choice. Bear in mind that this is science, not wishful thinking. The universe is what it is, not what we want it to be. To vote is to wield authority. It is the supreme authority from which all other authority derives, such as mine to make your lives miserable once a day. Force, if you will. The franchise is force, naked and raw, the power of the rods and the axe. Whether it is exerted by 10 men or 10 billion, political authority is force. But this universe consists of paired dualities. What is the converse of authority, Mr. Rico? He had picked one I could answer. Responsibility, sir. Applause! Both for practical reasons and for mathematically verifiable moral reasons. Authority and responsibility must be equal, else a balancing takes place as surely as current flows between points of unequal potential. To permit irresponsible authority is to sow disaster. To hold a man responsible for anything he does not control is to behave with blind idiocy. The unlimited democracies were unstable because their citizens were not responsible for the fashion in which they exerted their sovereign authority, other than through the tragic logic of history. The unique poll tax that we must pay was unheard of. No attempt was made to determine whether a voter was socially responsible to the extent of his literally unlimited authority. If he voted the impossible, the disastrous possible happened instead, and responsibility was then forced on him willy-nilly and destroyed both him and his foundationless temple. Superficially, our system is only slightly different. We have democracy unlimited by race, color, creed, birth, wealth, sex, or conviction. And anyone may win sovereign power by a usually short and not too arduous term of service. nothing more than a light workout to our caveman ancestors, but that slight difference is one between a system that works, since it is constructed to match the facts, and one that is inherently unstable, since sovereign franchise is the ultimate in human authority. We ensure that all who wield it accept the ultimate in social responsibility. All who wield it, yeah, accept the ultimate in social responsibility. We require each person who wishes to exert control over the state to wager his own life, and lose it, if need be, to save the life of the state. The maximum responsibility a human can accept is thus equated to the ultimate authority a human can exert. Yin and yang, perfect and equal. The Major added, "Can anyone define why there has never been a revolution against our system, despite the fact that every government in history has had such, despite the notorious fact that the complaints are loud and unceasing?" One of the older cadets took a crack at it. "Sir, revolution is impossible." "Yes, but why?" "Because revolution, armed uprising, requires not only dissatisfaction but aggressiveness. A revolutionist has to be willing to fight and die, or he's just a parlor pick. If you separate out the aggressive ones and make them the sheepdogs, the sheep will never give you trouble." "Nicely put! Analogy is always suspect, but that one is close to the facts. Bring me a mathematical proof tomorrow. Time for one more question. You ask it, and I'll answer. Anyone?" Uh, let's see. Who's saying this? Doesn't really say. Sir, why not go? Well, go the limit. Require everyone to serve and let everyone vote." "Young man, can you restore my eyesight?" "Sir? Oh, well, why no, sir." "You would find it much easier than to instill moral virtue, social responsibility, into a person who doesn't have it, doesn't want it, and resents having the burden thrust on him. This is why we make it so hard to enroll, so easy to resign. Social responsibility above the level of family, or at most of tribe, requires imagination, devotion, loyalty, all the higher virtues, which a man must develop himself. If he has them forced down him, he will vomit them out. Conscript armies have been tried in the past. Look up in the library the psychiatric report on brainwashed prisoners in the so-called Korean War circa 1950. The Mayer report. Bring an analysis to class." He touched his watch. "Dismissed." Major Reed gave us a busy time. But it was interesting. I caught one of those master's thesis assignments he chucked around so casually. I had suggested that the Crusades were different from most wars. I got sawed off and handed this. Required to prove that war and moral perfection derive from the same genetic inheritance. Briefly thus, all wars arise from population pressure. Yes, even the Crusades, though you have to dig into trade routes and birth rate and several other things to prove it. Morals, all correct moral rules, derive from the instinct to survive. Moral behavior is survival behavior above the individual level, as in a father who dies to save his children. But since population pressure results from the process of surviving through others, then war, because excuse me, because it results from population pressure, derives from the same inherited instinct which produces all moral rules suitable for human beings. Oh man. It seems like Rico has his work cut out for him, huh? Check of proof. Is it possible to abolish war by relieving population pressure, and thus do away with the all too evident evils of war? Through constructing a moral code under which population is limited to resources? Without debating the usefulness or morality of Planned Parenthood, it may be verified by observation that any breed which stops its own increase gets crowded out by breeds which expand. Some human populations did so in Terran history, and other breeds moved in and engulfed them. Nevertheless, let's assume that the human race manages to balance birth and death just right to fit its own planet and thereby becomes peaceful. What happens? Soon, about next Wednesday, the bugs move in, kill off this breed which ain't gonna study no war no more, and the universe forgets us, which still may happen. Either we spread and wipe out the bugs, or they spread and wipe us out. Because both races are tough and smart and want the same real estate. Do you know how fast population pressure could cause us to fill the entire universe shoulder to shoulder? The answer will astound you. Just the flicker of an eye in terms of the age of our race. Try it. It's a compound interest in expansion. Expansion. Jesus, I could read. But does man have any right to spread through the universe? Man is what he is, a wild animal with the will to survive and, so far, the ability against all competition. Unless one accepts that anything one says about morals, wars, politics, you name it, is nonsense. Correct morals arise from knowing what man is, not what do-gooders and well-meaning old Antonellis would like him to do. The universe will let us know, later, whether or not man has any right to expand through it. In the meantime, the MI will be there, on the bounce and swinging, on the side of our own race. Let's see. Oh my god, this chapter is long. Wait, what the hell? Okay, wait, no. I missed where it goes to chapter 13. Alright, I have 5 more pages. Oh my gosh. I had quite the busy day today, so I'm like pretty tired. So please excuse all the yawning and the difficulty reading. Alright. Toward the end of each of us was shipped out to serve under an experienced combat commander. This was a semi-final examination. Our board ship instructor could decide that you didn't have what it takes. You could demand a board, but I never heard of anybody who did. They either came back with an up check, or they were never, or we never saw them again. Some hadn't failed. It was just that they were killed because assignments were to ships about to go into action. We were required to keep kit bags packed. Once at launch, all the cadet officers of my company were tapped. They left without eating. and I found myself cadet company commander. Jeez. I like boot chevrons. This is an uncomfortable honor, but in less than 2 days, my own call came. I bounced down to the commandant's office, kit bag over my shoulder and feeling grand. I was sick of late hours and burning eyes and never catching up of looking stupid in class. A few weeks in the cheerful company of a combat team was just what Johnny needed. I passed some new cadets, trotting to class in some formation, each with the grim look that every OCS candidate gets when he realizes that possibly he made a mistake in bucking for officer. And I found myself singing. I shut up when I was within earshot of the office. Two others were there, Cadets Hassan and Bird. Hassan, the assassin, was the oldest man in our class and looked like something a fisherman had let out of a bottle, while Birdie wasn't much bigger than a sparrow and about as intimidating. We were ushered into the Holy of Holies. The commandant was in his wheelchair. We never saw him out of it except Saturday inspection and parade. I guess walking hurt. But that didn't mean you didn't see him. You could be working a probe at the board, turn around and find that wheelchair behind you, and Colonel Nielsen reading your mistakes. Oh my god. Let me see. What time is it? I'm sorry, everyone. I'm getting sleepy. Trying to keep up the energy, but I don't think I can. I apologize for the late start and for not finishing the chapter. I'm sorry. But I'll be finishing it uh next Sunday. We're getting pretty close to the end of the book. We're about 3/4 of the way through. So we should be finishing it fairly soon, probably in like another like 2-3 weeks, if I am not busy and or exhausted to the point where I can't read and my eyes aren't like wiggling around and closing and stuff. So apologies. I'm sorry. Take it easy on me. But I'm gonna end it here before I fall asleep while streaming, and I'm gonna hit the sack. And I hope you all have either a great day or a good night, and I will see you on Tuesday. I'm gonna try to play a different game and not Paragon. Or I'm sorry, not Paragon. Predecessor. But I will see you all later. Bye. Thank you for watching. Bye bye bye.